Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our weekend special. Save $1,000 on our most popular smart bed and adjustable base. Plus special financing. Ends Monday. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
Now more than ever, it's important for you and your family to enjoy the spaces you're in most often. Visit FergusonShowrooms.com to shop online or schedule a personalized consultation to meet with our experts at your local Ferguson Bath, Kitchen, and Lighting Gallery. Together, we'll help you make the most of home and create a space you'll love to live in. Get started on your project and discover extraordinary products like the Pro Grand Range by Thermador.
You know, it's one of the nice things about my job and some of the other jobs here at the center is that, you know, we do get to focus on avalanches year round. And in the summer, that sort of switches from collecting data and really understanding what's happening right now to more sort of planning ahead for like what the program is going to do.
Hey folks, I know I did something a little bit dumb yesterday. I didn't post a Thursday episode. How could I forget that? Oh my gosh. It's been a wild couple weeks. I'm not going to lie. It's been a wild couple weeks. Very, very blessed and very, very good things. But boy, it's been a lot to try to keep up with for sure. I'm not going to lie. I was not able to fit in putting in an episode yesterday, but it kind of works out because today on Without Compromise, my other show, we had a kind of a PSA, kind of like an interview with just someone with something really relevant right now. We know we have a lot of backcountry skiers that listen to this show, a lot of adventurers in general. And so on that show today, we interviewed Ethan Greene. He's the director of the Colorado Avalanche Information Center, CAIC. And so we wanted to interview him and talk about, kind of how crazy the season of backcountry has been. There's been a lot of fatalities, unfortunately, and that's probably due to COVID and people being forced kind of, out in the backcountry with skiing. They can't pile people into ski resorts right now. It's much more limited. So we wanted to, talk about, how to keep people safe, what they should do, and some of his experiences and how he got the job in the first place. He's been there for a while. But I thought it was a pretty interesting conversation. I hope you do too. And also for anyone planning to go out there right now, there's still a few months left of the ski season, and it's still very dangerous. There was someone, unfortunately, had a fatality in Colorado just a few days ago. So if you're going out, please be careful. Please stay safe, and please make sure you use resources like CAIC to be as prepared as possible, no matter where you live. And also, it is with Athletic Brewing. That's my day job. I know I'm always talking about them. It's non-alcoholic craft beer, but we released a beer this week called First Ride. It's a coffee porter. Really good beers. If you like dark beers, you love adventures, but you don't always want to feel sick or hungover or whatever, it's a great option for that. So check it out, athleticbrewing.com. But anyway, let's get into the episode. I've done enough plugging and talking for one episode, that's for sure. Just in a talkative mood today, I guess. Here's the episode. Ethan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Mason. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So where are you coming from today? Where's home?
I live in Leadville, Colorado. So in the middle of the state, in the Central Mountains. I got the Saguache Range on the west side of me and the Mosquito Range on the east. And the town is right around, it's a 10,150 feet. So my house is right around 10,1.
If I'm not mistaken, the highest incorporated town in the U.S.
Yeah, that's right. Highest incorporated town. And it was founded kind of in the late 1800s as a mining town, still a pretty big mining town, but also amazing recreation all around this place.
Oh, man. Do you feel like that's a good place for you to be with your role at CAIC? Is it like I'm way up here on the mountaintop, able to able to monitor all these avalanches.
I do. It's a great place for me to be, but unfortunately for a little different reason in that the Avalanche Center, the CAIC is, we cover the whole state of Colorado. So we're spread out. We have 23 people, covering about 30,000 square miles of terrain. And the reason that Leadville is a good place for me is because I can relatively easily as you can travel through Colorado, get to where other people are working and help them. And I can also get down to Denver where, the epicenter of the state government is and interact with those folks because we are a government agency, part of the Department of Natural Resources here in Colorado. So it's just a really good central location. And then, of course, it has the added bonus of being up in the mountains and close to the snow, which is where I'd like to be if I had a choice.
After all these years, you still love the snow.
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell us about growing up there, because you grew up in Boulder, right?
Yeah. I grew up in Boulder, Colorado, on the Front Range, and great upbringing. My family was very into backcountry recreating in the mountains. So winter, summer, we were in the mountains of Colorado, mostly around Boulder, the Rocky Mountain National Park and the Never Summer Range and the Indian Peaks Range, but then also other parts of the state. My dad really liked Crested Butte, so winter and summer we would do at least 1 week each in Crested Butte. My mom really liked the San Juan, so we were down there a lot. So just a lot of exploring in Colorado as a kid.
My goodness. So this was ingrained in you at an early age. When for you did you start, I guess, looking at this side of the equation, like the safety aspect and making sure other folks are not only enjoying it yourself, but other folks are enjoying the outdoors?
Well, unfortunately, I did come to this more from a personal aspect. I really got into this because I wanted to help myself do more in the mountains and be safe about it. And along the way, just because I got so interested in it and tried to figure out a lot of the science and a lot of the subtleties of how we move through the mountains, the snow-covered mountains specifically, I started getting into helping other people. So for me, that started right after high school. I moved to Telluride, Colorado, mostly to ski and to climb. And I had done some avalanche safety stuff with my family before, but down there, I really got into it at a much different level and started learning about a lot more of the details of it and the science of it. Decided to go back to school to try to understand more of the science of some of the stuff I was reading and trying to digest. From there, I had some really good guidance and mentorship, and part of that was, you need to see a lot of avalanches, and the way to do that is ski patrolling. So I started ski patrolling and really got into that, safety for other people aspect of it. Part of my duty at that point, I was working at a Big Sky ski area in Montana, which is pretty far away from any weather forecasting group. And so we did our own weather forecasting, and I got tasked with doing that, but I didn't know anything about it. So I started learning about that and eventually decided to go study meteorology and went to the University of Utah and got a degree there. And then after that, I just sort of bounced back and forth between kind of field-based research, operational avalanche safety, and more traditional academic research, and eventually landed here at the CAIC. So kind of a strange path.
And you have been their director since 2005. I mean, that's a long time. It feels like a long time to have any sort of title these days, any sort of job.
Yeah, I guess if you got any ideas for me, I'll figure out what's going to be next. Yeah, when I got this job, which was in 2005, the previous director was getting ready to retire, and he was kind of reaching out to a few different people that he thought might be suited for this. And I was working on a PhD. I was, deep in a cold lab, a big refrigerator, looking at snow, and and working with snow physicists in Switzerland and really enjoying that, and sort of thought that that was the direction I was going to go. But I started talking to friends of mine that worked at the center and, the other director and some of the other applicants. And, I looked at this and I was like, the last time this job opened up was 25 years ago. So the previous director, Knox Williams, he had founded the center and was the only director for its tenure. And I was like, well, it's got to be a pretty good job if he stayed in it for that long. And if it's something I ever want to do, this is probably the only time it's going to come open in my career. So I threw my hat in, not really knowing what I wanted to do, and was fortunate enough to get an offer. The rest is history, as they say.
I'm sure you have seen so much in your tenure there. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe some of the overall trends that you've noticed change either in the weather or avalanches themselves or in the culture around them? What have you noticed, and how have you been able to adapt?
Oh, really good question. And, I think it's sort of all of the above. Like, the only thing that is constant for us is that things are changing. The culture around backcountry recreation in Colorado, it's always been here, like we talked about a few minutes ago. It's something I grew up with. But it's really different. It's so different than when, I was a kid growing up and exploring the mountains. It's, different than it was, 5 years ago. And there's some great things about that. There's some complicated things about it as well. But it's really pretty amazing to see how much of a focus it's become in Colorado. There's a lot of people that are moving here because they want access to that kind of recreation. A lot of people that are visiting here, not only to go to the ski resorts or, ride a snowmobile with one of the guided groups, but also to get up high in the mountains and backcountry ski or climb a 14er in the winter. So just the diversity of sports, of what people are pursuing in the mountains is constantly changing. And I think it's really interesting and fascinating for us at the Avalanche Center to try to react. I'd like to say that we anticipate, but it's as much kind of reacting to what we see in terms of how people are using the terrain and what their goals are and what we can do, what we can provide for them to try to help them stay safe. The weather is changing as well. I think that's, just sort of a feature of the weather. But of course, the climate is changing, and understanding exactly how that's happening is certainly well beyond the resources and expertise of the Avalanche Center. But, we really have to deal with the impact of those changes on a day-to-day and a season-by-season basis. And so, it's hard to point to anything specific in terms of how it ties into climate change, but certainly some of the avalanche cycles that we've seen and some of the years that we've seen over the last 10 years or so would tie into climate change. And, like we saw an avalanche cycle in March of 2019 that it's probably a 200-year event. I mean, it produced avalanches in some places that are unlike anything that anybody had seen or really we could find any written record of. I mean, we've started collaborating with folks at the U.S. Geological Survey to look at the signals in the trees that were destroyed, to look at the tree rings and try to identify, just what type of avalanche cycle this was. So,
did you find any interesting answers or anything uncovered? I remember that being an unprecedented year for avalanches.
Yeah, it was really an unprecedented, kind of 2-week period. So, but no, we're still trying to tease a lot of that stuff out. We're spending our summers running chainsaws now, collecting discs from the trees that were destroyed in this cycle. And we've got about 1,000 samples so far. And we're just, the scientists at the USGS are just starting to dig in to do some of the analysis. So, we know that some of these paths had a return rate of around 70 years or so. We've seen a few of them that were more in the 100, 120 years, and then we've seen a few that were over 250 years. But really trying to understand like how that all fits together, we haven't gotten that far just yet.
No kidding. It's just a constant. It's like CSI, but for for weather patterns, and just constantly putting the pieces together, trying to figure out what happened, how to solve it, how to prevent it in the future, or at least prepare for it. Why is this important? Why is forecasting important?
Well, I think one of the nice things about the Avalanche Center is it really is about human lives or human interactions with this natural hazard. Avalanches are a pretty important natural hazard in Colorado. They kill more people than any other natural hazard in the state. On average, 6 people a year, and this is a way above average year for that. Unfortunately, we've had 11 people die in Colorado so far this winter. The center is really tasked with helping people understand avalanches, helping people with avalanche safety, both from people that are going out, skiing or snowshoeing or riding their snowmobile, but then also some of the local governments when they're, building structures or planning their communities. We work very closely with the Colorado Department of Transportation to help them with a highway avalanche safety program, because Colorado, the state and federal highways that run through the state, there's 522 avalanche paths that threaten that transportation system, and right around 250 that we do active mitigation in. So, it's really something that affects a lot of lives in the state, because people live in the mountains, like me here in Leadville. It's not just that people are traveling to the mountains for recreation. People live in the mountains, they recreate there, but they also, move between towns, they move goods and services. And the recreation economy in Colorado has become an extremely important part of the state. And so, we're a very small group, and we try to contribute just a little bit to everybody being able to do all the different things that they want in the Colorado mountains.
A ton of great reasons why understanding this is so important and helps us all. How has the forecasting itself changed in the last 15 years that you've been director, 16 years? Have you seen just leaps and bounds there, or is it kind of some tried and true methods?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both, and it's a little hard when you're in the trenches to see the leaps and bounds so much. It's a little more of kind of eking out a little real estate day by day. But like a lot of kind of similar applied science groups, I think the use of technology. It's just think about how much it's changed in that 15, 16-year period. And, we've really followed that suit as well. Like when I started here, a lot of the documentation was on pads of paper or on forms on clipboards. We had clipboards hanging all over the office, and you had to flip through them to kind of look for information. And the forecasters, they kept a tremendous amount of stuff in their heads. There were people here when I started working here that had been here 15 to 20 plus years at that time. And just the amount of knowledge that they had in their heads was incredible. But of course, it's hard to pass that on to other people. It's hard, whether that's generational or between the operation. We operated really as a bunch of different avalanche centers kind of spread out through the state. And so, a lot of what we've done is tried to use modern databasing and data visualization, and we're running our own computer models, and just trying to piece together all of the snow, weather, and avalanche information that we can collect and sort through it so we can deliver it to backcountry recreationalists or people on the highway or emergency managers of some of the local counties.
Is there any sort of time of year or a time when you decide you can take a breather for the season, or is avalanches a threat all year round for you? Like, is there a time of year that you're like, okay, we made it?
Well, in the state historically, we've seen avalanche accidents in every month of the year.
Wow!
But in general, November through April, or on some years May. That's really the core part of the season. There's a pass right near my house here called Independence Pass. It's over 12,000 feet. And that's a road, it's a paved highway, Colorado Highway 82. But that closes in the wintertime. And so, we do a bunch of work with the with CDOT to open it up in the spring. And that typically happens kind of in the middle of May. We try to open it just before Memorial Day. And that, in a lot of ways, sort of marks the end of the main season for us. But we are still monitoring the conditions, around the year. It's one of the nice things about my job and some of the other jobs here at the center is that, we do get to focus on avalanches year round. And in the summer, that sort of switches from collecting data and really understanding what's happening right now to more sort of planning ahead for like what the program is going to do. What are we going to change over the next year? What are we, are there new products that we can give to people? Are there new education programs that we want to try to improve on or launch? This last year in kind of in preparation for what we had seen with COVID and the shutdown in last spring, and we're heading, into the fall. And so we worked with the Friends of the CAIC, which is our nonprofit partner, to launch this trailhead sign campaign. And so we designed some signs that we could put out, and we printed them and gave them away to local governments and the federal government and clubs and really anybody that we could. And so now you see those signs at well over 100 trailheads around the state. And so that, that's just something that last summer we saw this need, and we just tried to figure out how we were going to do it. And so that happens in that, kind of quote unquote off season. We, I ran into some people in the field yesterday. I was out with one of the forecasters snowmobiling in the Swatch range, and we ran into some people, and we were talking to them about what we were doing and, sort of the questions we were trying to answer. And, of course, they're like, well, what do you do in the summertime? And, my standard answer was a little flippant, but also true is, we get ready for the winter. We've basically got about 4 months of downtime in between the main part of the season where we can do development, and any progress we make in the year really happens in that 4 month period.
Jeez, man. So it really is never ending concern. And you mentioned this year being higher than usual. And I imagine that's because the ski resorts are closed for the most part, or at least much more limited. And it's just forcing people into the backcountry. And is that true? Have a lot more people entered the backcountry because of that?
Well, it is true. And it's also probably a little bit more complicated. We talked a little bit about just that interface between, people and this natural hazard. And, it's a complicated interface to examine and kind of keep track of. I say that in order to get people caught in avalanches, you kind of need two things, avalanches and people, and they're both really complicated. And so understanding like how they fit together is tricky. Here we in Colorado, like the ski areas are open and there's lots of people that are enjoying recreation there, but it's certainly different than it was in the past. There are some limitations. There's reservation systems at some ski areas. It's pretty different from there's 27 major ski areas in the state. So how they all operate is pretty different. You're going from kind of like the mom and pop ski area near me, Ski Cooper on Tennessee Pass, which is where the 10th Mountain Division trained for World War II, to Breckenridge, which I don't know how many millions of skiers visit there each year, but it's a huge operation. And so how all of them have addressed COVID and the new restrictions and the new public health environment is pretty different. But backcountry recreation in the state, like it's been growing on its own. So, pretty much every year we're seeing more people in the backcountry and participating in these different sports. I think that was accelerated by COVID and the impact it's had on our world, but it's also just sort of amplifying the pre-existing signal there. As far as avalanches this year, I mean, we were sort of we got dealt kind of a tough blow, really, because we do have more people in the backcountry for all the reasons we just talked about, but then we also had a pretty tricky snowpack this year, or have a pretty tricky snowpack. And unlike that March of 2019 cycle that we talked about a few minutes ago with 200-year events happening, These events are not like those at all. They're much smaller avalanches. They're not wiping out, acres of timber like those ones were, changing the landscape. But they're really much more dangerous for people because they're really easy for people to trigger, and they're large enough to kill people. And so what we saw was people getting more involved in these avalanches because a lot of times they're going places that they're used to go and doing what they were used to doing, but not anticipating just how tricky these avalanches were. A lot of them you could trigger remotely, which means that you can trigger them from a low angle slope or maybe a sub ridge when you're walking up next to a steep slope. They're running much wider and much further than you would expect for the amount of snow that we had. And, as a result, we had a bunch of different accidents, and we had a couple accidents that killed multiple people. So really pretty scary stuff.
How do you process that? Accepting that, being the director of CAIC and just trying to keep people prepared, is that still obviously something very hard to get through, but how involved are y'all in that either recovery process or in trying to go and understand those accidents where it is fatal?
Well, we're involved in it in a lot of different ways, and it depends a little bit on the events and kind of how that all shakes out. But we do investigations of every fatal accident and some non-fatal, and really our goal there is to document that human avalanche interaction, both in the short term to educate people, to show them what's happening right now, and hopefully help them avoid it, but then also to look at avalanche accidents, together as a large data set, and really think about the trends in terms of how people are, who's getting involved in avalanches, how that's happening, and if there's characteristics in the people or the avalanches that that we can learn from. So we try to visit these sites within 24 hours. But a lot of times, because we do support local governments, the sheriff's responsible for search and rescue in Colorado, and most of the counties have some sort of nonprofit group that's a volunteer group that's doing search and rescue. And so we try to support those folks as much as possible. And so a lot of times we are out with them on the initial response or the recovery, depending on how that works. And this year, that's been a lot of work. We've spent a lot of time, helping these groups and being involved in these rescue or recovery efforts, and then, trying still to write detailed reports and explain to people, what's going on. And a lot of that is, or the biggest short-term goal is really to prevent the next accident. We try to do that quickly so that people can understand that and hopefully apply those lessons right away.
Time for a quick message break to hear from the folks that help make this show possible. If you're like me, it's that time of year where your New Year's resolution or the focuses of the year are starting to, potentially slip, and you're starting to need a little bit more help, tap into more of the accountability of a community, or just, try to turn your resolutions to be a little more fun, honestly. Sometimes they can be brutal to try to keep up. But if that's you and you're looking for this platform where you can take classes that you enjoy and help you to stay focused, stay centered, I really encourage you to check out the Restoration Depot, which is at therestorationdepot.com. And they have classes like yoga, Tai Chi, essential oils, music, a ton of other stuff. And you can take your first class for only $5. And for, ongoing classes, it's very convenient, very affordable. But sometimes, when you're working at home like I do, it's really hard to just take that time for yourself every day. I don't even want to tell you what time I'm recording this because it's just ridiculously outside of working hours. But I got to do it to fit it in my day. But it's also unhealthy in the long run. So we need that time every day that we can take for ourselves, focus on doing something healthy, and it's just going to help us in the long run. And so if you're like me and you struggle with that, having the Restoration Depot can really help you. Make sure you take those classes, be a part of a community, and actually have a little fun in your day. I really encourage you, again, check out therestorationdepot.com, and your first class special at checkout is $5.
Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. Don't miss our weekend special. Save $1,000 on our most popular smart bed and adjustable base. Plus special financing. Ends Monday. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details. Look, staying healthy isn't easy. Watching your diet, hitting the gym, avoiding stress. But a good night's rest helps boost your overall health and wellness. And it couldn't be easier. The new Sleep Number 360 Smart Bed is the only bed that effortlessly adjusts and responds to both of you. The result? You wake up ready for anything. Proven quality sleep is life-changing sleep. And now the new Queen Sleep Number 360 C4 Smart Bed is only $14.99, plus special financing, only for a limited time. Special financing subject to credit approval. Minimum monthly payments required. See store for details.
What would you say the biggest misconception about avalanche forecasting is that you hear from folks on the outside? Might be many.
Well, we put out these forecasts, about sometime between like 6 and 7 in the morning, and people seem to think that we've already been out in the mountains looking around, and then we're back in the office and writing those forecasts by 7. And sometimes that actually does happen. It's not the same people writing the forecasts that are out, but a lot of what we're doing is getting up super early to go through all the data and look at all the models and try to understand what's happening, and then write that forecast. And as part of that, we're posing whatever questions we have about where the holes are and what we're doing, and where we need more information or what topics we need to understand better, and then going out and getting that. So we are up early. The first shift starts at 4 a.m., but we're also not going out into the snow to dig lots of snow pits at 4 a.m. We wait till it's light and then do that work.
That's some serious dedication. So what excites you the most about the future of forecasting? Is there anything you see that's coming, or any sort of technology, or any sort of, trends that that excites you the most?
Well, the group, I'm fortunate to work in a group of, really dedicated and talented people, and it's a pretty big group for the type of work that we do. So we really have our fingers in a lot of different pies, so to speak, where we interact with a lot of different research groups. We have the resources and in some cases expertise to contribute to a lot of different types of work out there. So there's a lot of exciting stuff. I think we're looking a lot at how we actually issue these forecasts and how people ingest that information and use it, and trying to figure out how we can do that better and kind of reach people more where they are rather than where we are. So I think avalanche forecasting traditionally has really relied on people knowing a lot about avalanches and what the forecasters do, and over the years we've tried to shift that a little more so that we have our own internal processes, but then we can deliver that information to people in the way that they want it, whether that's through social media or on geographic regions that make more sense to them, or information that we can feed to education programs so people can understand that better. And I think we still have a long ways to go with that. And so we're continuing to work on some of those topics, and I think have some interesting ideas that will hopefully come out over the next few years. There's also a lot of really interesting technology. There's an article in a publication in Colorado, I think just today, about some of the work that we're doing supporting research groups that are trying to look at avalanche activity with satellite imagery. And so just the ability to see avalanches without having to go into the field and individually count them. Like there's no substitute for going in and looking at the snow in the mountains, but to be able to see, say, like avalanche activity over a large area like Colorado and get a better count of what the number of avalanches and the characteristics of the terrain that they're releasing in, I think that would help us tremendously. So yeah, there's a lot of different topics out there, and like a lot of fields, I think we have a lot of really talented young people that understand the science and are interested in the application that we're working on, and I'm very excited to see what they come up with.
Too cool. Well, I'm going to give you two situations here, and I want to know best way to go about it. Group of friends going to the backcountry to ski this weekend. They might not be the most experienced or the most, prepared. What advice would you give that group that might be listening right now who have plans? And then also, what advice would you give someone that has a little more time? Maybe they're interested in this in general and want to get more into the backcountry.
Sure. Well, those are two groups that we deal with quite a bit. So for the folks that have plans and are heading into the mountains, the very most important thing that they should do is check the avalanche forecast. They really want to make sure that the avalanche conditions during the time that they're going to be out match their plan. So, if they're in Colorado, going to colorado.gov/avalanche and looking at the forecast. If you're in some other part of the country, go to avalanche.org, and you can get connected with a local forecast center throughout the country, and just make sure that what you're going to do matches what the avalanche conditions are, because that's really the most important. Is I like to tell people that there isn't any recreational goal out there that you need to cross off the list. Like any peak that you want to climb, any place that you want to ski, any route you're going to traverse or go with your snowmobile, like those are all possible, but you really need to find the right day. And so matching the current conditions to your plan is the most important piece. For the person that has a little bit more time and wants to understand this stuff better, it's pretty incredible. The range of material that's at your fingertips with the internet, and I think with COVID and all the challenges to meeting in person, of course, that's been really hard for a lot of us, me included. But one of the nice things about it is that there's so much more material has been moved online. So, like we do a fall seminar every year, mostly geared towards avalanche professionals, but certainly has good stuff for recreationalists as well. That's the Colorado Snow and Avalanche Workshop. And, typically we get about 600 or 700 people to come to Breckenridge and hang out for a day and listen to talks. This year, of course, we had to do that online, and we had, closer to 1,500 people register. And now those recordings are on the Friends of CAAC's YouTube site. And, you can watch that material and really listen to experts from around the world. The Friends also do a recreational version of that same sort of seminar. And so, that just happened a couple weeks ago. And so, again, that material is available. And then there's a bunch of other avalanche centers that have done the same thing. And so instead of having to travel around the country to listen to people talk about these topics, you can go onto these different YouTube channels and just absorb an incredible amount of information. So, it really depends on how detailed you want to get in terms of snow science or avalanche applications. What your particular interest in is. Is it skiing? Is it snowmobiling? Is it trying to protect a highway or a work site? But between all the different resources that are out there, you can take classes from the American Avalanche Institute or ARI. There's the International Snow Science Workshop that has an archive of 30 years of science papers you can read. Like, there's an amazing amount of stuff out there, and so it's really just a matter of picking what you're interested in and digging into it.
Fantastic. I love that you mentioned YouTube. I feel like I have a degree in a couple areas where it's all been YouTube, man. There's some great people teaching great stuff on the internet. Yeah. And you can learn just about anything, including this. That was I didn't even think about that, but just YouTube it.
I fixed my dishwasher this weekend with YouTube videos.
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's such a great resource. But too cool. Is there anything else you'd like to share with listeners before we jump off?
Well, we've covered so much. I don't know if there's really much else. I guess I'd just like to thank you for the invitation to come talk to your listeners, and thank Athletic Brewing for the support of avalanche safety in Colorado, and really encourage people to get out there and enjoy backcountry recreation, especially in the wintertime. Right now, I'm looking out the window at snow-covered peaks under a beautiful cloudless blue sky. And, it's just an amazing experience. There's so much that people can do out there. And I hope that people that are listening to this are excited to continue to do that or motivated to start.
First of all, thank you so much for listening. It means the world to us that you choose to listen to this show. If you'd like to help us further, you can leave a review on iTunes, share us with your friends, your family. It goes a long way to growing the show. You can also support us financially through patreon.com/adventuresportspodcast. Link is in the show notes. And also, if you have an idea of who could be a good guest for the show, we're always looking for people to tell their story about the outdoors or adventure. So if you know someone, please reach out. Email us at info@adventuresportspodcast.com. And until then, get out there and have some fun.
You can't control what's outside your home, but you can control what comes in. Because Clorox disinfecting wipes kill 99.9% of viruses and bacteria, including COVID-19 virus, when used as directed on hard, non-porous surfaces. So whether it's from dirty doorknobs, dirty shoes, or something else, outside germs won't stand a chance. When it counts, trust Clorox. Kill Pseudomonas, Salmonella, and influenza virus type A2. Kill SARS-CoV-2 on hard, non-porous surfaces. Use as directed.
Worried about mom or dad falling? The Symphony Medical Alert System from CVS Health helps make their home safer, even if you can't be there. Symphony works with voice activation or a care button they can opt to wear, along with smart sensors for coverage around the home. With 24/7 emergency response and an app to tie it all together, you can monitor your loved one's well-being for enhanced peace of mind. Terms and conditions apply. Learn more about Symphony at cvs.com/symphony or find it at your nearest CVS Health Hub.